Well, I think the reason many Western political doctrines have an eschatological character is that they inherit it from religion, in particular from Western monotheism and from Christianity most of all. And I think this is confused. There is a confusion in the minds of many people who think about religion. They think that if they reject religious beliefs, then they've rejected religion. But religion is more than a set of beliefs. It's a whole way of thinking. It's a set of categories and concepts which can survive and have survived even when the beliefs have been rejected. So many of the supposedly secular doctrines of the West, including Marxism and most forms of liberalism, are really monotheistic categories and concepts applied without the background of religious beliefs. Now, as you may be aware, and as people who have read my writings may know, I myself am an atheist, but I strongly criticize many forms of contemporary atheism because they seem to me to take the worst features of religion and leave some of Western religion, abandon some of the better features of religion. And by the worst features, I mean the strongly missionary, evangelical, and at times intolerant form, certainly was transmitted to communism. And also the general claim that Western religions have made to have identified the best form of life, or even the only good form of life for all human beings. That is a kind of, I think, an intolerant claim. And that claim has really been central to many forms of Marxism and liberalism. What they've abandoned from religion, which I think is good, is the idea they've abandoned there is a kind of, oddly enough, in religion has coexisted for a very, very long time with doubt. So religious faith is very familiar with doubt. I know there are many types of fundamentalism in Christianity and in Islam and in other religions. But if you look at the whole history of Western religious thinking in Augustine and in the great Jewish thinkers, Maimonides and others, you find that faith and doubt coexist. And there's also in religion an awareness of the inherent flaws, the inherent difficulties, the inherent weaknesses of humanity. And that kind of has limited to some extent in the past the eschatological and messianic tendencies of religion. They've always been there. They've always been dangerous in my view. They've always been harmful. They've led to religious wars and forms of tyranny and persecution, but there has been these other elements in religion which have kept these tendencies in check. Whereas if you abandon an idea of a transcendental order, if you abandon the idea that human beings are flawed, inwardly flawed, which is now almost a forbidden idea. It's almost an idea which is so offensive to modern taste, to contemporary sensibility. If you say that humans are highly flawed animals, which I think is true, that's considered to be almost a kind of blasphemy against the human species. But it's true. Before that Christian idea, we find in the Old Testament, in the Hebrew Testament, the Jewish Testament, the idea of the myth of Genesis, which says that human knowledge is ambiguous. Human knowledge is not necessarily liberating or good. It depends how human beings use it. These are very profound ideas, and those ideas were, and true ideas, because although myths can't be true in the way that scientific theories can be true, myths can have truthfulness, or truthiness, you might even say. If they're abandoned, but the apocalyptic and eschatological and aspects of religion are continued, in other words, if the categories and ways of thinking of religion carry on, but the beliefs have been rejected, along with these ideas of these deep myths, if these deep myths have been abandoned, then the result is what the great early 19th century Italian poet Leopardi called the barbarism of reason. Leopardi was an atheist, as I am an atheist. He rejected Christianity. It caused a lot of pain to his poor father, who wanted him to grow up a good Catholic. He rejected Christianity. He admired ancient polytheism in the ancient world, but he knew he couldn't become polytheist. It's ridiculous. So he actually supported Catholicism in his own day, because he thought Catholicism, although he didn't share it, the Roman Catholic, was better than what he called the barbarism of reason. And the barbarism of reason is the idea that the whole world, the whole of humanity, can really only live well in a single way. And he thought that that idea would lead to enormous wars, enormous dictatorships. He already wrote about the Jacobins in France, but he said this kind of what he called the half philosophy, the barbarism of reason, a kind of new secular religion, would be even more intolerant, even more oppressive than Christianity had been at its worst. And I think he was right. It's what I also think myself.